Oh, hey, sorry guys. I was in a trance. um, Thanks for joining me today. I hope you're having a wonderful, wonderful day. And today I want to actually talk to you about the Chris Reeve Small Sebenza 31. And this is going to be in the box elder scales. So stay tuned and enjoy the video. Hey, thanks for joining me, guys. This is the Chris Reeve Small Sebenza 31 in the box elder inlay. Just want to give you guys 360 kind of walkabout on this knife. This knife is quite stunning to look at. This is probably the most beautiful knife I have in my collection for sure, hands down. Look at that. You got some of that little red hue in the inlay. Box elders kind of known for that is that they'll have some of these kind of this red tint in their grain. And so I have a little bit, but there's some other inlays where I saw that they had a ton of red. And apparently that's like really desirable. To me, I don't care either way. The reason why I wanted box elder in the first place is just reminded me of like coffee. I'm a big coffee drinker, and so when you get your first cup of coffee and you pour in your creamer and then you start to see that swirl as it kind of blends into the coffee, that kind of reminds me of that. It just looks very just creamy. It's actually very like it's like golden. It has like a golden tone. It's just very classy. Look at that grain of the wood. Look at those swirls. I love box elder. Yeah, there's the backside. Yeah, it just gives the knife so much character, so much depth, you know. So I've had this knife for about 5 months now, so I feel like I have a better handle on how it performs as an everyday user. So I'll get into that. But actually, before I do, I want to bring out some knives out as a size comparison, to give you guys a better understanding of like the dimensions of this knife. The first knife I want to bring out is actually the overall length. It's actually very comparable. This is the Hinder XM18 3-inch in the Warncliffe. As you can see, the length is pretty much pretty much the same. You're gonna get more cutting edge on the Sebenza 31 though. Okay, the next one I want to bring out here. Let me see. Do I have it? This is. Sorry guys, I should be better prepared. I try to be prepared, but not overly prepared, because then I start to sound really awkward. It doesn't come across as me, So anyways, this is the Spyderco Para 3. I feel like also very comparable. But yeah, I feel like you get more cutting edge on the Sebenza 31. I'm gonna bring out its older brother, the Spyderco Paramilitary 2. And the reason why I bring these knives out, because I feel like a lot of people have them, and so you could you'll have a better understanding in comparatively. And then one more knife I'll bring out. This is the ZT-0562 Ti. This is one of my favorite knives that ZT has ever made. So as you can see, here you go. So yeah. So moving on, I'm a big fan of Chris Reeve knives for sure. I actually ordered this directly from them. It took about 4 to 6 months, for them to get this knife to me. They have a backlog, they're in high demand, so that's so understandable. But yeah, I was really excited to get this one because, first of all, this is their Sebenza 31. So it's actually like an evolution of their Sebenza 21, and I do have this one here. This is the Small Sebenza 21 in the micarta inlay. And so when Chris Reeve announced that they're coming out with the 31, I was really excited. I want to see what kind of refinements and changes that they were going to make. And that's the thing about Chris Reeve knives, is that when they make changes to their existing models, they don't make huge changes. They're not gonna come out with a knife that's just like leaps and bounds you know, beyond like the previous iteration. You know, they tend to make small refinements, you know, small changes, tweaks that really builds upon you know, in you know, their previous generation, you know. So as you can see here, I feel like the overall shape of the knife is not that different, you know, but I will point out a few things if you're curious about the differences, or you could just skip this part to when I talk directly about this knife. But yeah, first thing you'll notice is just the inlay pattern is different, right? So you have a 2-piece here, and then you have a 1-piece here. The backside is you still have that 1 piece, but then the next thing you'll notice is that the pocket clip is now angled a little bit more upward. And so here in the 21, it rests fully on the lock bar, but over here you kind of have this, you know, half situation going on, and kind of goes into that inlay area. So they milled out that space in that inlay to accommodate this now angled pocket clip. I don't know the exact reason why they angled it out. I've heard that it feels better in the hand, but to me it doesn't. Honestly, it doesn't feel very different at all. Yeah, it doesn't feel different in the hand. I've also heard it say that they want to alleviate some of that tension off of that lock bar by putting it over onto that surface. Yeah, I'm not 100% sure, but yeah, so that's another difference. And then I think the third largest difference is, you won't be able to see this on camera, but in the Sebenza 21, they carburized the titanium surface that interfaces with the tang of the blade. Now with the Sebenza 31, what they did is they embedded a ceramic ball at the top of this lock bar. So it's no longer a titanium on steel, now it's on ceramic on steel. And supposedly that extends the wearability of the lock as well. It's a little bit more stable and stronger than just titanium on steel. So that's that. I think it's cool. In terms of how it feels, like the action, there is a slight noticeable difference. So when I first got the you know, the Sebenza 21, it took a couple of months to break in to the point where now I could thumb flick it, right? And so I could thumb flick it, and then when I release the lock bar, it'll kind of drop down. So it's broken in really well. With the Sebenza 31, it actually only took a couple days for me to break it in to a point where I could flick it. So it took considerably shorter amount of time to break in and really just get to that point where I could do that and then do that. And the way I'll describe the action, I feel like this is the 31's action feels a little bit more deliberate, a little bit more vault-like, but smoother at the same time. I hope that makes sense. Whereas I feel like this feels a little bit less deliberate. This feels just really just, yeah, like a deliberate action. I don't know if that makes sense, guys, but yeah, I also like how you don't get that double click of the detent ball, you know, breaking the angle of that tang, you know, so you get this. I hope this comes across. So you get one click, and then the second click of the lock bar fully engaging. Here you don't get that first, you only have one click. Boom, that's it. So that's another thing I noticed. I really like that. I mean, don't get me wrong, nothing wrong with that double click. No, to me it's fine, but for those who don't like that double click, you will only get a single click of that lock bar engaging over, which I think is cool. It feels nice. You know, I feel like the feeling of the action is a little bit more refined than on the Sebenza 21, if that can even be possible. Because I mean, I feel like the Sebenza 21 is an already perfect knife, you know. So for them to build upon that, I think is a great feat in and of itself, you know. But anyway, now moving on, you know, so when I got this knife in, I did a first impressions video. You could check that video out in my archive. But that same weekend that I got this knife, I took it camping. I went like on a 2-day camping trip. And yes, typically I will carry a fixed blade knife on my outdoor adventures, but I wanted to see, how this knife is able to handle the outdoors, in doing like camp chores. And so I whittled wood with this. I've prepared food with it. I've cut different materials with it. I've carried it in and around my camp exclusively, and it worked really well. I love how Chris Reeve really blends their design aesthetic with functionality. It's not just a pretty showpiece. It's actually a knife that's designed to work and work hard. It's designed to be taken care of and just to be carried every single day. And I really feel like they really achieved that perfect blend of design and functionality in this knife. Now, let me see. Moving on. Well, I noticed there's a couple of things I noticed that it kind of threw me off a little bit. And that's because, with Chris Reeve, you do kind of expect perfection, right? You are dropping a big chunk of change on a knife like this, especially when you start getting into the inlay versions and all that. And so when I got this knife directly from them, I noticed that the bevel is actually it's a little crooked. It's kind of a little wobbly. So you get this area here of the bevel. See how it's kind of acute, it's kind of short, and then it kind of flares out, more as you get to the tip. I've never seen that. I've owned several Chris Reeve knives, and I've never seen that before. So I know it's probably just like a one-off type situation, but it also happens on this side as well, where you kind of have this acute bevel and then it kind of flares out. And then it kind of goes acute a little bit. So it's not like a consistent like a line, which I thought like was interesting. I mean, it doesn't affect cutting performance whatsoever. Like I said, I've cut through, like wood. I use this to open packages and do food prep and just as an everyday carry, and it does not affect the cutting performance at all. But I think it's just more like an aesthetic thing. The next thing I do want to say is that yes, there is such a thing as a Sebenza Thumb. So if you don't know what that is, it's a kind of a knock on their thumb stud. So this is how they've designed a thumb stud. It kind of looks like the poop emoticon, I would say. So it kind of comes to like it's not a sharp point, but it's for some reason it's like kind of uncomfortable, and I feel like, a well-designed thumb stud shouldn't be like that. It should be relatively comfortable, An example I want to bring out here is, let's bring this guy out. This is the DPX Gear Hest Folder Classic Decade. It's a mouthful, but see here how you have, you have like this large flat area. So when you go to engage the blade with your thumb, it feels relatively comfortable because I feel like you have more surface area for your thumb to rest on. But with this one, you don't have a lot of surface area per se, so it kind of digs into the meat of your thumb. So, granted, it's not super uncomfortable. You're not going to get cut or bleed or anything. But, if you're like a knife nut like me, you like to open and close a knife for hours on end, you will start to feel it, And so they call it, like, after you do it, you're going to start developing a callus, or like your skin's going to start getting a little funky. They call that the Sebenza Thumb. And yeah, it's a real thing. But yeah, that's it. I mean, that's really the only two kind of things that I noticed that I was like, But everything else about this knife is like, it's above and beyond, guys. Look at that. Okay. Look at that two-tone finish. You have like this machine like satin grind finish, and then on the flats you got the stone wash or the sand blasted finish. I want to bring out here's my 21 again. So with this guy, it's just a consistent kind of like a stone wash finish through and through, right? But yeah, with this guy, you have those beautiful just grind lines, and I'm a big sucker for grind lines. The more prominent the grind lines, the better for me. That might not be a cup of tea for you, but yeah, it's just they did that beautifully. And another thing I love about Chris Reeve knives is that the plunge line, it's way back here, so you get the full cutting edge that you can sharpen, to kind of illustrate that point. So I want to bring back the DPX Hess holder again. You see how the plunge line terminates fairly early on, right? If you could compare. So when you have that, you kind of have this kick, up to that ricasso area, but then you kind of have like this weird flare out at the very heel of the blade. And so what could happen over time is that you could start getting like an inconsistent sharpening. Honestly, it's not a big deal. I love this knife. This is an awesome knife. But yeah, when designers or knife companies, when they kind of kick that all the way back, you don't really get that issue. So you're able to consistently sharpen the cutting edge from tip to heel without any hitches. And I really like that about Chris Reeve knives. Let me see. You get this really nicely tastefully done gold anodization on the thumb stud. It will wear out, as you can see, but I love how it complements that golden just tone of the box elder. And you also get that in the backspacer as well. Look at that. That's very interesting, right, guys? When I first saw like this finish, so you have like these polished kind of finish on the titanium flats, right? Very polished. But then you turn it over, you get this kind of the stone washed or this bead blasted finish on the pocket clip and the lock bar. Very interesting. If I bring this guy out, this is more of a consistent finish through and through. When I first saw that, it looked kind of off to me, It looked kind of like it was like half done. Like they just forgot to polish these two pieces. But over time, I've just really come to appreciate this kind of very unique way they did this. It gives a knife character. Look at that. They also bead blasted the edges. Look at those chamfers. Even the chamfers, man, that's quite I love those extra kind of touches, those extra details they really put into it. Look at that. The thing about having like a polished surface though is that you will see smudges more quickly. It will ding and scratch up more quickly than like a bead blasted surface, but that's fine with me. Any knife that comes into my collection, it's going to be carried and used for sure. So I don't mind if it starts to get scuffed up, scratched, dinged, whatnot. It's just part of the experience. I love, this feels very good in the hand. I have small to medium sized hands, so I get all 4 fingers on it. And the thing about this one piece is that it does feel more substantial in the hand. It feels like it has more girth than this guy, this 2-piece inlay pattern. But for some reason, I do like the feel of this in my hand better than this. I feel like visually this looks better, but I feel like in feel, in hand, this feels a little bit better. But not to say that this still feels very comfortable in the hand too. Yeah, it's nice. I believe that this is reminiscent of an older inlay pattern. I forgot the name. It's like the Sebenza. It was like maybe from 10 or 15 years ago. They had like this one piece. I don't know if it's the Millennium Edition or the Classic, but yeah. So it's kind of reminiscent of of their older kind of style inlay pattern. But I love how that looks. I love how they just bring that subtle curve up and then kind of kicks down. And I love how it just kind of surrounds that pivot screw. Very, very tastefully done, I'd say. Yeah, let me just give you a 360. If you're like looking to get, an inlay version, I highly recommend it. If you're kind of worried that, hey, it's not gonna hold up, like especially this wood inlays, don't worry. I mean, like I said, I've carried it in all sorts of environments and it hasn't cracked or become distorted in any way. Granted, yes, it is wood, so I think you do have to be a little bit more mindful. But if you're like me, if I, I'll wipe it down or whatnot, but just an everyday kind of carry scenario it's been perfect. It just feels very warm in the hand. When I say warm, it feels, I mean like kind of pleasant. I feel like that's what like wood inlays or even micarta inlays, they afford the warmth in the hand kind of a feeling, Yeah, and this is a stunner. Oh, sorry guys. Yeah, this is an absolute stunner for sure. So yeah, with that being said, I hope that you enjoyed this video. Feel free to leave any comments or questions, and I'll see you guys on the next one. All right, take care.